hear that, what I said about the, okay.
Not giving you any points, Connie. I'm just going to say that. Oh, guys, thank you so much for hanging out for a couple minutes. I come from Denver, as some of you guys know, the pagan nation in Colorado. So don't hold that against me. But I am just so glad to hang out with you guys. I wish I could be there in person. I love Connie and Frank and Lori to death, and they're always so fun to hang out with. But I'm just going to take a couple minutes and just give you guys a little bit of my story, just kind of why you guys are even here tonight. So kind of to take off of where Connie was talking, I grew up in this little town, Plainfield, Illinois, outside of the Chicagoland area. And when I was 11 years old, my family started attending this very simple startup little church meeting in an elementary school cafeteria. And this was functional church. I mean, we set up the chairs. There was no lights or smoke or anything like that. We didn't even have name brand Oreos at the snack table. It was the off-brand Oreos. And here's the thing. It worked for me. I didn't really know any better as a little kid, but I still remember I was 11 years old, month of September, and it was just another Sunday. I was planning my snack table attack for after church and what that was all going to look like. And it was actually in that service when I heard the pastor talking up front about this love of Jesus and how his death and resurrection can open the door for my sins to be saved, and just how his blood covers all of my sins. And as an 11-year-old boy, I was so overwhelmed with emotion. I could not hold the tears back. I was so moved by it. Now, I didn't know in that moment, but I left that building completely changed. In that moment, something switched in my heart and my soul. And I can tell you, overnight, guys, as an 11-year-old boy, you know this has to be God. As an 11-year-old boy, I had an appetite for the Bible. I started just reading the Bible on my own. I started a prayer life with God. And that moment set me on a trajectory that now I can say many years later has completely made all of the difference. And God used that moment to completely change my family's direction in history and just a lot of generational sin. I could go into all the detail, but it's so easy to look at that small little church in Plainfield, Illinois. And guess what? That church is still there. It's still a tiny little church in Plainfield, Illinois. They got this little cute building now on this corner. I actually emailed the pastor for the first time since I had seen him in middle school last summer. And I said, I never told you that I got saved at your church and completely changed my life. I said, you probably don't even remember me. And I got an email back that day and he said, oh, Brian, I remember you. He had some commentary, but we won't those details. But here's the thing. It's easy to look at that little church and think, man, it's kind of this little insignificant fledgling little church that had, its own drama, just like every other church. But here's the thing. You can't even measure the impact of that community. In my life alone, they completely transformed the trajectory of my life that has now impacted my marriage, the way I raise my kids. Again, like I said, multiple generational sin issues that were broken because of all the changes that God brought through this little church. And I am just one story from that church. You can't even measure the ripple effect of it from the spiritual impact. And here's the thing. I watched a talk of a pediatric surgeon at one point, and they asked him, they said, why did you decide to work with kids? They're always crying, they're screaming. There's just a lot more drama and maybe even pressure working with kids and liabilities. And he said, he's like, that's easy. I can have an exponentially greater impact working with kids. And he just explained, he's like, if I can help a 4-year-old walk again, or an 8-year-old girl have any hope of a future functional life, that child may have 70, 80, 90 more years in them. And the impact of that is just so much greater if I can help the kid there. Now, here's the thing. I think that principle applies spiritually too. Obviously, we want to reach people of all ages. It's so important. But here's the thing. The power of reaching a kid, you can't even calculate it. Because when you reach a child, you don't just reach that child. You reach their future marriage, their kids, their workers, their career, their friends, their neighbors. You are impacting and having a ripple effect that you can't even measure. And some of you guys who might be a little bit familiar with CEF and the history of it, you might know some of these stats, but just think about some of these facts. This is researched, studied, verified, factual information. Here's the thing. 2/3 of anybody who will ever become a Christian will make that decision before they're 18. And they found that someone who decides to become a Christian before becoming a teenager will have exponentially higher odds of keeping a strong, passionate commitment to Jesus the rest of their life. And actually, this has led CF and some other ministries to kind of coin this term, the 4 to 14 window. And this is the time in somebody's life when they are most receptive to the gospel message. Like an X factor more receptive to the gospel. And it's just a fact, kids are much more open to hearing the truth of Jesus than adults. I mean, it's an unfortunate reality of just, I think, our human nature. But here's the thing, because of that, I don't think this is a controversial statement. Kids are the single greatest mission field on planet Earth. And this is what has made CEF so effective for the last 80 plus years, that they have said, we are going to singularly focus on kids in every nation, every community. If we can reach the kids, we can change the culture and completely set generations up for new trajectories. And here's the thing, guys, in Colorado, we've got over 1 million kids in the state of Colorado alone. Think about that. There's 1 million plus kids in our state alone. And I'm telling you this right now, I've been able to travel around the state, and I think a lot of you guys would agree with this too, based on your own experience. It is safe to say that most of these kids are not growing up in environments that are really helping them understand and even receive the truth of Jesus in their lives. I can tell you, my neighborhood alone, I know 2 families that have any connection to a church at all, and it's pretty nominal. Most of the kids in my neighborhood never hear about God, don't have parents that are telling them about God, they're not going to church, and they are not being exposed to the greatest truth and life-changing reality that there is. And here's the thing, this is what I love about CF. We say, okay, well, if they're not going to go to church, we're just going to go to them. And this has been the winning strategy of CF for so many years. We're like, let's just go where the kids are. We'll throw clubs in schools, parks, backyards, wherever we can just gather some kids. Let's get them together and make sure they know the greatest news on planet Earth. And with this model, there's no limit to who we can reach. Even with COVID, we've been able to reach 1,500 kids with all the COVID limitations and getting kicked out of schools and everything. So here's the thing. This is what really captured my imagination. I was looking at even this opportunity of joining CF in the ministry. I saw 3 words that they put on the website. It just said, we want to evangelize every child. And that just resonated with me so much. How can we make sure that we give every child in our state the opportunity to hear and respond to the good news of Jesus? And this led us to kind of start this mantra. I hope it sticks with some of you guys. We talk about this now amongst our staff, and I like how it's catching on. We just say this, there's over 1 million kids in this state. That's overwhelming. I mean, I don't even know where to begin, how to even touch and scratch the surface of that need. And probably most of you guys in that room, you don't know 1 million kids. You probably don't even know 100 kids, maybe. Probably Connie and Lori and Frank do. They know 100 kids, but a lot of us in this room, you don't know 1,000. But so it's overwhelming to think, how do we even begin to scratch the surface of 1 million kids? And we've just said, here's the thing. We just need to focus on this. Change eternity, one child at a time. My church reached one individual child. They changed my life. It completely set me on a trajectory. I was a local church pastor for 10 plus years before joining CEF. I was lucky and blessed to see hundreds and hundreds of kids and teenagers and people come to Christ and be baptized. I'll tell you, it was always one kid at a time, though. It was one baptism at a time. It was one decision at a time. That's all. That's always what it is. God reaches us one at a time. And we just got to ask, you may not know 1 million kids, but 3, 5, you have a nephew, you have a niece, you have kids at your church, you have kids in your neighborhood, and maybe you don't have to ask, how do I reach 1 million? You ask, how do I reach the kids that God has placed in my life? How do I reach that one child? How do I make sure they know that there's a God that loves them? And I really fundamentally believe that this ministry has the ability to fundamentally make a dent in the spiritual dynamic of Colorado. And I'm just telling you guys, Colorado is not on a good spiritual trajectory right now. Most of our country isn't, okay? That's just fact, right? And so CF is one of many ministries that is trying so hard to change the trajectory of our country and the world by reaching the next generations coming up after it. So with that being said, we talked about how we can really make this dream be a reality and how we can really put a dent in our state's need. And that led us to say, I'm the state director. I can only do so much from Denver. You know what I mean? I am very limited. If I tried to drive down to the meeting today, that would have been a lot of car time. Thank God for technology. It's helpful sometimes, but I can't reach the kids in Grand Junction and Fort Collins and Colorado Springs and Pagosa Springs. I can't do it. And I shouldn't. I'm so limited. That's why we have amazing staff all around the state. People like Connie and Frank and Lori, and we have other staff at Grand Junction and Denver and the north side of the state and the east side of the state. Point is, you guys are in the communities where you can reach the kids. You're the ones who know your schools. You're the ones who know your neighborhoods. And so we relaunched these things called chapters in our state this last year because we were kind of functioning out of Denver a little too much. And we launched these 8 chapters around our state that gives the staff and those volunteers the opportunity to solely focus on the kids in their area because you guys know your communities, you know the needs. And we're empowering with funding and people and resources to make sure that your areas can thrive by sharing the good news of Jesus. And here's the thing, this is why all you guys are here tonight. You are sitting inside what we call the Southwest chapter of Colorado. Now, I may be a little biased, but I don't think I am. Southwest is one of my favorite chapters. The only reason I can't say it's my absolute favorite is I live in North Denver, the North Denver chapter. I can't say it's my favorite because I have to, I got to play favorites with my own chapter, But here's the thing, Southwest chapter is one of our best areas. It's one of our most fruitful areas. Frank County, we have done such a good job there. And we want to so badly to continue to see kids in that area be reached. So we want to see places like Alamosa and Bayfield and Pocosa Springs and Cortez and Aspen Springs and all the other surrounding communities have such a strong presence of the message of Jesus in kids' lives through clubs and the ministry opportunities and partnerships with churches. We want to extend that. So that's what we're trying to do. And here's the thing. There's already so many great churches out there. There's great ministries. You're sitting in one of the great churches right now. I've been to that church there for you guys who attend Pagosa Bible Church. But here's what we can do as a ministry. We can come alongside the churches and existing ministries and say, hey, we can extend your evangelism reach. We can help you get into schools. We can help you get into neighborhoods. Sometimes it's hard for churches to break into certain areas where we can help resource and supply and offer help to make churches even more effective at their mission and what they're trying to do. So we're all on the same team at the end of the day. But here's the thing. This is what we need for this chapter to thrive, guys. We need a team of people that really believe in the power of reaching kids for Christ. People who are really banded together to see these communities reach, that they understand the big picture vision of reaching the Southwest region of Colorado. And they just carry that vision inside of them of, I want to see every kid know Jesus. This is the most impactful thing I can do is help kids know Christ. We need a team of people to step up and say, yes, I am somebody who wants to do that. And this is what CEF calls a committee. The team of people who say, I'm going to take some personal responsibility to help make sure this area is covered with the love of Jesus for these kids. And it's a group of people that care about all these different regions and know what's going on and are tapped into the communities and are supporting the staff and are there for them. And we need a strong committee in the Southwest to make this thing go. And there's so many implications about how this will help us as far as just what it does with our structure and our support and making the things go. I don't want to get into details there. Connie, I think, handed out a paper with some of the overview of what the role is. And if she hasn't, she will.
I will.
You guys can read over the paper, but let me just say this. What these committee members will do is they will essentially just be advocates for the ministry of CEF and reaching kids. They're going to help Connie, Frank, and Lori with just ideas and support, sharing about the mission of this ministry with friends and their church and neighbors. Ultimately, you're an advocate for the cause of reaching kids for Christ. And we're hoping you'll have some skin in the game with just, again, providing vision and support, prayer, and involvement. This is not like a second part-time job we're asking people to sign up for. It would involve a couple meetings a year. But this team of people are the ultimate buck stops here people for the ministry of CEF in the Southwest region of our state. And so we've already had one of these meetings before and had great response, and we've already had people signing up, but you guys are in this room because you have been handpicked and hand-selected by Frank County and Lori themselves, because they really believe you guys have that heart and that passion and that spiritual maturity to help this ministry thrive. So this was not an open invite event. This is an exclusive private event that nobody else was invited to. So just you guys, so if you're in this room, it's because there are people that think very highly of you and think you would be amazing to help the kingdom work in your area continue to move forward. So really the ask, and I'm just going to land with this, is if you're in this room right now, you're here because we want to ask you to join this. I want to ask you to pray about jumping on and helping move this cause forward. And I'm telling you, there are little kids just like I was in Plainfield, Illinois, who did not know there was a God that loved them and just needed somebody to tell them. And it completely changed my life. And here I am as a grown man still loving Jesus more than ever, and now helping move his kingdom mission forward because some little tiny church in Nowheresville, Illinois, told me about Jesus. And so God wants to use you guys to do the same thing out in your area. And let me add this little caveat. You might be in the room and maybe you're like, I'm not good at running a club. I don't want to work with kids. Maybe you're not like, don't want to be super hands-on with kids. There's a few people like that. The committee is the perfect opportunity for you because you don't have to be as hands-on with clubs and kids. Now, here's the thing. If you're like somebody who's like, no, but I love kids and I love being hands-on. Well, great. Community is perfect for you because you can still keep doing that. So we have somebody on our committee already who's like, I don't want to talk to kids. I don't want to play with kids. I don't want to sit on the kids. I'm like, great, but you love kids and you want them to know Jesus, right? And he's like, oh yeah, absolutely. I'm like, then you're perfect. Okay. And same for you guys, wherever you're at, as far as your ability to engage with kids doesn't matter. You just need to have a heart. You need to have a heart for this cause and believe its importance. And I'm somebody who always thought kids were important and mattered, but CEF has completely changed my mind about how strategic we can be in our kingdom efforts and what really can make a lasting impact. And that is why CEF is still here almost 100 years after its existence. CEF has been around since before World War II, guys. We're still talking about it and doing it. There's not many organizations you can say like about that. So, and that's because I think this cause truly is a kingdom eternal effort, and it's never going to go out of style to reach kids with Jesus. And so I'm going to stop with that. I would ask you guys to look over that sheet. What I am going to do over the next couple of days is just follow up with you guys. Connie and Frank will let me know. I don't think I got a chance to meet all of you guys personally. I think I see some familiar faces, but I just want to follow up and say, hey, thank you so much for coming. You got any thoughts? Do you have any questions? You know, I'll probably do that after the Easter weekend because I know we got different commitments. But next week, I'd love to touch base and just thank you guys first off for even showing up. The fact that you're here says something. So thank you for that. And just see where you're at. But if you're in here, it's because we want you on this team. We don't want to just ask you to consider it. We're saying we think you would be great for this. So I'll stop there. I know that was a little long-winded. You got me a little excited. I'm sorry, I can't help it. I can open the floor to questions. I'm sure there's nothing you would ask me that Frank, Connie, or Lori couldn't answer themselves. But while I'm on the call, is there anything anybody? Oh, you got the random guy from Denver on the phone. You want to say? Good. I was so comprehensive. That's great.
You're awesome, Brian.
Well, let me just say thank you, guys. Thank you so much. I've been so blessed to be a part of this ministry. I've been on staff now just about a year, almost to the day. I love the staff out there. Seriously, they are family to me. They're just wonderful partners in ministry. If you do sign on with Frank, Connie, and Lori, you are in good hands. And there are so many kids out there that we are reaching and we want to reach. So I can't wait to see what God does. So thank you for the time, guys. I'll let you finish up your food and your conversation. And I look forward to talking to some of you guys next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Great night.
All righty.